when me touch down, better broke down.
With Gamtel G-Fiber, now you can enjoy super fast internet in gigabytes. G-Fiber is affordable, stable, secured, and accessible to homes, businesses, and enterprises. With Gamtel G-Fiber, the future is speed. Gamtel, creating a brighter future in communication.
That's how she became mine and see the.
All right.
Honey, did you remind him that the last time he sent the money, it was not enough to buy all the provisions?
Oh, sorry, I forgot to tell him.
Are you guys talking about money transfer to buy provisions?
Yes.
But
Don't you know about Baluwo?
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 What is Baluwo?
Baluwo is a service that your son can use to send provisions directly to you guys from the shop. And you don't have to worry about the exchange rate.
Tell me how Baluwo works.
It's very simple.
Just log on to baluwo.com and shop, or download the app on your phone. You can shop on the website or using the app to buy online basic products for your family and friends. With Baluwo, you decide what your money is spent on. Your money, your choice. Buy online products for your family and friends in the Gambia, Senegal, Nigeria or Mali. Baluwo, better than sending money.
Are you thinking of owning your dream homes? EJ Investment is here for you. Secure our quality bungalows with 2, 3 or 4 bedrooms, or our story buildings 3 or 4 to 5 bedrooms at very affordable prices with flexible.
Hello and welcome to the brunch on Kerr. Fatou. I'm loving Cham. We apologize for coming on air late this week, but all the same we are back with we hope ingredients that will really make you happy. And we go straight without wasting time to the major stories of the week in our press review. And one story that really attracted my attention, like I said before, was the extension or retention of the state of emergency. And the Gambia government will also go back to the National Assembly next week to table more bills. We will discuss all that. And the United States announced they've arrested a former member of President Jammeh's Jongler, who's now been put on trial. We will bring you the reaction of the Ministry of Justice to that. All this in these 45 minutes that we have. And with me is Nima Kamal, usual panelist from the University of the Gambia. Nima, welcome.
Thank you.
Cherno Marenah is the Solicitor General, the Ministry of Justice. Cherno, welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr.
And Madi Jobateh is a well-known activist and commentator on Gambian affairs. Madi, welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
If he has his headache.
Oh, really? You want to add that his headache as well? Okay. Then if he is a headache, what are you? A relief?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So we shall see all that. Now, this week we will, of course, we had a lot of issues surrounding our justice system or our legislation, etc., and it all also connected to the emergency, COVID-19 emergency. We had a government spokesman announcing on behalf of the government that the measures, the emergency, 21 days have elapsed. Another 21 days we will be on the emergency, whether or not this was legal or it was a retention or extension. That became a topic of controversy, and we're going to deal with that. First, Nima, does the president have a right to retain or extend the state of emergency? In your understanding, we were made to understand that it is only the National Assembly who can do that once the president's 21 days was gone.
Yeah. So today, I'm just going to say that I have very little to say today. From my perspective, I have more questions and answers to these issues. Because when the declaration came out, the first question I asked myself was, could the president declare a state of emergency back to back? I know he can for 1 week, 7 days, if Parliament is on, if Parliament is on recess, 21 days. But can he do it back to back? That is the question we need to ask. And the reason why I raise this question, for me, it's because it's too arbitrary to have a president to declare a state of emergency, given the fact that this is going to curtail rights and freedoms, and that is very fundamental in any democracy. So today I will be asking questions to have these things cleared to me. And I'm very happy that we have the Solicitor General here with us, and we have an opinion leader like Madi Jobateh, who had so much to say about this issue.
Okay, SG, let's go straight to you. According to many commentators, the president doesn't have the powers, or the powers he relied on in the press release, for example, section 3460, are not enough for him to extend or retain. How do you call it? Is it an extension or a retention of the emergency situation? In any case, do you think the president had any powers to do that? What powers do you like?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Section 34 is the governing provision when it comes to state of emergency declarations. Section 34.1 provides that the president may declare a state of emergency for 7 or 21 days, depending on whether the assembly is sitting or not. And section 34, I think 5 or 3, actually allows the assembly to extend that for up to 90 days. So when the assembly acts on a state of emergency, they cannot declare, but they can extend. And section 34.6 of the same provision of the same constitution provides that the president may make further declarations. So the president did not extend technically the state of emergency acting under section 34.3, but rather it made a further declaration of a state of emergency under section 34.6. And section 34.6, we should be careful not to read words into a section that are not there. Section 34.6 did not say that the president may only declare a state of emergency once, twice, or 3 times. It's an open-ended section, and therefore the president acted under section 34.6 to declare a further declaration, to make a further declaration.
And he can do that many times.
Provision does not place a restriction.
But it didn't also constrain him from extending it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's no constraint. It says the president may make a further declaration of public emergency before the end of the current, the one which is current, basically.
But what is the difference?
What does that mean?
You don't want to call it extension. Yet
No, because I'm speaking the language of the Constitution.
Yeah.
The Constitution talks about extension when the National Assembly basically is extended.
Yeah.
The initial state of emergency is declared.
Yeah.
But section 34.6 does not talk about extension.
What is it talk about?
It talks about further declaration.
And it doesn't change the fact that we are continuing.
Well, in effect, yes. But then we need to be careful. We're talking about the Constitution here.
Yeah. But
we should use the language of the Constitution. Because we cannot say the president is extending.
Because he doesn't have such powers.
Exactly.
But then only say what he really wanted is what was happening. Emergency to go another 21 days.
It's a further declaration. So you don't want to use words in a different context, basically.
In a layman's language, what would that mean, further declaration?
Further declaration means a new declaration, basically.
So that means that's a new declaration of the state of emergency.
But it's not extending.
Well, it has the effect of extending. Yes, it has the effect of extending. And when you talk about extension, in the language of section 34, it's the National Assembly that extends.
But all the same,
you see when you speak in law here and legal language, you should be careful not to use language for the sake of convenience.
So we can safely say, from what you've explained, we can safely say this is a new declaration.
It's a new declaration, yes.
Okay, so it's not an extension, it's a new
declaration. Under the Constitution to make a new declaration.
Under section 34.
But whatever that means, it cannot be extension, because he doesn't have such powers.
Yes, it's a new declaration.
But all the same, we are still on emergency.
In effect, yes.
Yeah. From a Solicitor General's point of view, don't you think that is problematic if you have a constitution that empowers the president to declare a state of emergency, making further declaration for however long he wants to do so? Don't you see that to be problematic?
A state of emergency is not an act that is actually declared willy-nilly.
But it can be.
mean, in fact, I had said in one of the programs, it's the least acted on powers in the constitution, in the Gambia, at least. I mean, since 1981, we've not had any, I would call it legitimate declaration of state of public emergency. And I think the reasons for it are quite clear. I mean, the reason why the state of emergency has been declared this time, I don't think there's an argument about that.
Yes, that's right.
So really, I mean, in some countries, all right, even in neighboring countries, I'll probably not mention names, even the National Assembly does not have a role to play when a state of emergency is declared in some countries. Ours is
a dictatorship.
It's a dictatorship. I mean, when you talk about a state of emergency, you're talking about an abnormal situation.
Yes.
It's not a normal situation where
exactly. Yes.
I mean, and of course that's why it's not declared lightly. I mean, it's declared in a situation where there is a pandemic that really threatens, where there is instability, where there is civil unrest. It's those situations. We can argue about whether the justification is there or not, but I don't think the argument should be about whether there's a power to declare it, because clearly there's a power to declare it. Is it justified? We could have our different opinions on that, but we shouldn't be mistaken about the fact that the power to declare and make a further declaration of state of public emergency is actually constitutional.
But I want to argue, I just need to be really clear.
Yes.
Today I'm going to take over from you.
Okay.
I want to argue that both the power and the justification matters, because in normal circumstances you would expect the president to declare a state of emergency only when it is required. But we also know that these powers can be abused. We have seen it being abused one time in our own country here. So the chances of it getting abused is very likely. So if that is the case, then I still find it very difficult to accept that a president can have these powers to exercise for as long as he wants, because the Constitution allows him to do that without parliamentary oversight.
Well, I mean, there you go. I mean, you see, in a democracy, there has to be balancing of powers. I mean, there has to be checks on powers as well. But at the end of the day, you don't also want a situation where the chief executive of a country, I think even in this new constitution, I mean, the power to declare state of emergency is prescribed as well. You don't want to also a situation where this chief executive of a country, no matter who he is, I mean, has seen a situation where he may be able to step in and do something, and you say he cannot do so because there's a likelihood he's going to abuse the power to do so. I mean, there has to be a balance. You cannot have a lame duck president as well, seeing danger affecting a country and being unable to act. I mean, constitutions and democracies are built on those, balances, and we have to really, make sure it's there. I mean, to make sure that, the president, whoever he may be, is able to, protect the people and the country from
isn't it also
danger.
A simple case of egos here? There is a history between the president and parliament about this whole issue. When parliament kicked out his first attempt to extend it, and he used his powers to extend it. Now it's come to a point where he would have to go back to parliament. He felt too big and too good to do that. He said, okay, let me rely on another loophole in the constitution to extend it, basically, and to call it whatever name. But in effect, it's just to extend it. Wouldn't it have been proper, or is it too? It's going to be too demeaning for the president to come to parliament next week and say, or the other day, and call them and say, I want you to extend it again, and test whether his policies are popular with them again.
I'm not sure.
Is he not circumventing that?
I'm not sure it's a popularity contest, neither a contest of egos. I mean, really, we should not lose sight of the fact that we are facing a pandemic, unprepared as a country.
Yeah.
I mean, a pandemic that, whose power really, is beyond our capacity to deal with if it really strikes. That is the bottom line. And whatever is being done is being done in accordance with the constitutional provisions. The Constitution says when Parliament or National Assembly is not in session, you can declare for 21 days. If it is in session, you declare for 7 days. I mean, the National Assembly is clearly not in session. Yeah. That's why it has been declared for 21 days. So really...
And now, let me ask you this. Should they come back to session and can they annul this? Can they override this 21 days, stop it?
There is no provision in the Constitution again, when we speak, let's limit ourselves there is no provision in the Constitution to say that the National Assembly has the power to revoke state of emergency that they did not. If they extend it, they can revoke before the expiry of the extension. But where the president declares, there is no express power in Section 34 to say National Assembly can revoke the state of emergency that was declared by the president.
Madi Jobateh, you have written and spoken very much in opposition to what the point of view conveyed here by the Solicitor General. What's your argument? Why do you think President action is wrong?
Yeah, thank you. I have a different view from the Honorable Solicitor General. In the first place, I don't think we need 34.6, Section 34.6. It doesn't occur here, which I'll come to. But we just have to understand what's happening. We have a pandemic, and as you rightly said, this is huge. It has to be addressed. We have emergency powers in our constitution, and they have a purpose to be used. And this pandemic is a justifiable reason to invoke those powers. And as he said, the president has the power to invoke, that is to declare a state of emergency, and has the authority to revoke it. What he does not have authority to do is to extend. That authority lies with the National Assembly, which can also revoke its extension. So people got to understand that way. So when this pandemic began, we saw this president come on March 18 to declare a state of emergency, which I had challenged that in itself was done wrongly. But then we saw him come March 26 to make a public declaration, which went up to April the 2nd or 3rd, where we saw the Assembly give it an extension. They came with a request for 90 days. The Parliament gave them 45 days. That went up to May 19 or 18. By then, the Parliament wasn't in session. But an extraordinary meeting was called because a state of emergency, I had him make reference in some countries, Parliament has no role. That would be a dictatorship. Yeah, but in a democracy, a state of emergency is between the executive and the legislature. So naturally, the legislature has an integral role, just as the executive, equal role in this thing. So they called, I'm sure the executive must have alerted the Parliament that we want to bring this bill, so come to the Parliament and decide on it, because the decision makers are the legislators. So they came, if I could recall, May 15 or so, and they decided that they are not going to extend. And as he rightly said, in the Constitution, 34.2, if the Parliament is not in session, the President can declare for 21 days. Because the Parliament was called for an extraordinary session from 15 May to 18 May. They failed to extend. They went back to recess. So the next day, 19, the President declared 21 days. Constitutional. Now, when that 21 days went up to June 9, just as they had called Parliament to come back for an extraordinary session in May, it's the same process. They have to call back the Parliament to come and sit so that they can put a motion again for an extension. An extraordinary session. So that they can go back for an extension. That is, if this president wants to submit himself to democratic practice and to our constitution. But he refused to do that. And then instead of therefore going back to section 34.5, where that extension would have to be made, he decided to jump to 34.6. And baselessly, there's no justification to utilize 34.6. Because the language in 34.6, and he's a lawyer, and we have issues with lawyers, all the time. But he said the language in 34.6 says further declaration. Let's analyze. I'm happy I'm numerous because of what is further declaration. When you say further something, it means that thing is there. It is an extension of that. And when you look at the Gazette and the press release by the spokesperson, it says the president declares therefore a state of declaration, emergency continues.
It continues.
Continues. That's an extension. So if 34.6 would have been justified, if apart from the existing declarations, regulations that are in place, if they come to extend, add other things there, to say in addition to what exists right now, Other new regulations are put.
But
So
it's
it's
the same
fought, yeah, but it is the same
Same
because
thing.
it says the existing regulations still continue.
Okay.
So the lawyers and the politicians at State House
Right.
want to play with our minds.
Yeah.
You understand?
They are
We urge them to submit themselves to democratic governance and to the constitution, and not to play, juggle with our constitution just to perpetuate, unconstitutionality, because this is what it is.
I told him that are they trying to avoid submitting themselves to the assembly because of their egos, because they thought maybe the parliament will just throw it away and say, let's look for a technical loophole. We avoid saying extension because that's illegal, but we can use another means of extending this by using another language which is further declared.
Exactly. Let me just say something on that, because exactly this was what I wrote in my piece a few days ago. That to say the road they are taking is dangerous, because effectively they are creating a situation where up to the end of term of this president, he can declare state of emergency upon state of emergency by cleverly elbowing out the National Assembly completely. And when one understands what is a state of emergency, the nation is at risk. That's why you would declare a state of emergency, to save the nation. In that situation, a huge amount of power is given to the executive. And that means a huge amount of our rights are restricted. A huge amount of processes are circumvented. All right? And these processes are talking about accountability, transparency, the use of public resources. I mean, the powers to all of do a lot of things, arrest people. When that is a situation, that's a very precarious situation. That requires that there is very effective alert vigilance, particularly by the National Assembly. So if you could recall, from April 3rd to May 19th, the National Assembly created a COVID committee for the purpose of checking the implementation of the state of emergency powers. When they did not extend May 18, and the president declared his own on May 19, that COVID committee was dissolved. So there was no oversight, especially for the COVID-19, for the state of emergency situation. So right now, as we sit here, there's no special committee of the National Assembly looking over this current state of emergency. So which means
the one has been extended now.
Right. So which is dangerous for us, for democracy, for governance, for the human rights of our people. So what the road this president is taking, I think it's a very dangerous precedent. It just reminds me of Mubarak in Egypt, who imposed a 30-year state of emergency on his country by going in and out of the constitution like that. I mean, we are not going to accept that.
Cherno, Madi's arguments really stand to pass the test of moral. It has a lot of moral standing. I mean, you cannot have a president doing whatever he likes and ignoring parliament, which represents the people of the Gambia. Like you yourself admitted, he could still rely on this 34-6 to come back after this one extended and said, we want another further things.
Unfortunately,
so when will it end?
Unfortunately, I am not an activist. I'm a lawyer.
Yeah.
And as a lawyer, I mean,
no, you should say fortunately.
Well, maybe unfortunately, maybe I would have been more free to talk the way Madi is talking. Just allow me to laugh.
Yeah, I understand, but are you telling us that you are really constrained because you are in government?
No, not government. I said lawyer. I didn't say government.
Okay, all right.
I would not ascribe bad faith to an act that is patently constitutional.
Okay, all right.
As a lawyer.
All right.
I mean, I would not ascribe bad faith to an act that is patently constitutional. That's my point. Because I can only ascribe bad faith when, as you rightly pointed out, this state of emergency ends in the middle of June or at the end of June, whilst Parliament is in session, and the President relies on 34-6. Then, in that case, you could say there is bad faith. Because there is a possibility to go to National Assembly and seek for an extension, which is in session, and that was not done. In that case, we can talk about the bad faith. But as it is right now, I don't think, as a lawyer, I would ascribe bad faith to an act that I see to be constitutional and to be in line with the provisions of the Constitution, which says that the President can do so. And you're saying that he should not do so because you think there can be malafide. I think that's the basis of the argument. You think there can be malafide, therefore it's a right that should not be acted upon. I'm not sure that's a very legal
But what's
argument.
stopping from calling extraordinary session again?
No, that's what I'm telling you. Because National Assembly is not in session.
Yeah, but
and National Assembly is about to come into session on the 15th of June. Yeah. Therefore, I mean, it is found desirable that
also
every National Assembly sitting, extraordinary sitting of the National Assembly, costs the taxpayers $1.2 million.
Yes. Okay.
If National Assembly is to come into session in a few days' time, why would you not declare a state of emergency and allow them to extend it or not to extend it at the right time? I think that at the end of the day, the bottom line is there a need for a state of emergency, Mr. Chair?
No,
that's the bottom line.
If
there is none,
that's not the bottom line.
At the end of the day,
the
way the argument is going, at the end of the day, it seems like if you go to National Assembly, there is a possibility that the National Assembly would not deem it necessary that the state of emergency exists.
No,
if they so deem, that would not be in line with what the health experts are telling us.
Exactly, that's what we've said.
Exactly.
We are not down there as a justification, but we are saying, well, the people are observing it should be done correctly and legally.
The problem is not. Can I come in here?
Yes.
The problem is the question is not whether there is a justification. The question is the implications of it.
What are the implications?
The implications of it is the many people whose lives are affected by the state of emergency.
Whose life is not affected by the state of emergency?
Everybody. So that is the point. The point now is, should we be sitting back and refocusing our strategies or redesigning our strategies away from declaring state of emergency? Should we, for example, determine now how long is it going to take us to continue to declare states of emergency rather than seeking for alternatives to address this whole pandemic? So it seems to me, for example, the reason why it's disturbing for laymen like us, not the lawyers, even though it is constitutional, the reason why it's disturbing is the seeming lack of regards with which the president declares the state of emergency without engaging the public on the implications and how they are going to address those implications, how this is affecting the whole economy, how it's affecting livelihoods, how it's affecting, especially also where rights and freedoms are at the center of all of these things.
If I may ask a question, is it mutually exclusive to have a state of emergency and have that conversation?
It is.
No, it's not mutually exclusive.
No.
That conversation can take place while the state of emergency, that's what's happening around the world.
Yeah, but
countries are discussing how to get out of this state of emergency and measures that can be done or carried out in order to ease some of the restrictions.
No.
And that doesn't also mean that you have to take away the state of emergency before you can have that discussion.
It's mutually exclusive if those who are supposed to have this conversation are not coming onto the table to have this conversation, because they rely on the state of emergency.
And Solicitor General, with all due respect, I think the argument of the National Assembly members who voted against the extension last time, which brought this bad blood between them and the...
Is there really a bad blood?
Oh, yes, of course. Over this matter, over this emergency. Is because, everybody knows it's justified to put a state of emergency, but they look at the implementation aspect of it, they found a lot of contradictions there. You are asking people to give away, don't go to work, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, yet you are leaving other aspects of it as it used to be. So that's where the problem is. Like even recently, the National Patriotic Party, they've been electing, how to call it, I don't want to be political, but they've been electing constituency and regional elections for their party. I mean, that's been happening. We saw it everywhere. And you are a government, you're supposed to say people should social distance themselves. All the political parties said here in March that they are going to stop all their activities. The IEC stopped holding by-elections, and now parties are continuing doing regional elections. And this is the presidency, the party of the president. So all the contradictions are there. Why do you want us to believe that the government is serious about it?
So what would be your suggestion?
This suggestion is, like now, even now it's not been implemented. This new measure says, even when they were east, that everybody should wear a mask at Serekunda and Albert Market or anywhere. It's not happening.
I've had a lot of problems.
It's not happening.
What is your solution?
The solution is very clear. Make it mandatory by deploying security, of course, that anybody who's coming to visit the market or sell there should be having a mask, wearing a mask all the time you are there, or you don't come in there. And that's very easy to implement.
But even we sitting here, we should be wearing masks according to the WHO guidelines.
In fact, if we leave our house.
Yes. But why are you not wearing? Why am I not wearing?
No, why
are we not taking personal responsibility?
I have a mask in my pocket.
In your pocket? It should be in the pocket.
No, listen. And they said, the directive is when you do it, anytime you go into public, anytime you go to public, wear it. I do that on.
So you should be wearing it here.
No, I took the mask on air, and there was this health officer there. What did he say? What did he say? He said, Mr. Cham, if you're not going to a public gathering, where you cannot do the social distance, put it on, which I always do. But now, people go to the market and stay there for 12 hours, they don't put in a mask.
I know, I don't think anybody can argue.
People go to mosques, they said social distance, or fumigate this mosque. It's not happening.
No, that's what I'm saying. I don't think anyone can argue that the implementation and the respect for the safeguards and the regulations.
And what has been attitude, and people like holding political gatherings completely out of place.
My point is, the regulations that are supposed to accompany the implementation is being flouted by every one of us.
Including the people in the authority.
Every one of us.
Well,
that suffices. Every one of us.
Yes.
And I think the conversation,
so
like
why
Nima
do
said,
we have to
the
go
conversation should be about how do we, starting from us, see the change that we are all clamoring for should happen under the state of emergency.
Okay. Madi,
important issues. But I want to go back to the original question, law and governance. I understand. And the law and governance of this country is, as it is concerned in our constitution, this declaration made by the President on June 10th is completely unconstitutional. You see, I had the Honorable Solicitor General talk about taxpayers' money in terms of the National Assembly sitting, that they are going to sit in a few days, why I called them again just a few days before. I take that to be a political argument. That's not a legal argument. Anyone who understands a democratic republic, like the Gambia, with our constitution, knows that decision-making, the primary decision-making in this country is the National Assembly. This is why National Assembly, there's no time the National Assembly should not sit. Even if the Gambia is at war, the power to declare war, the power to decide is the National Assembly. If they cannot meet physically at the National Assembly House in Banjul, we have seen other parliaments do Zoom online. We've seen parliaments, if anyone knows history, during the Second World War, the UK Parliament was meeting in bunkers, underground bunkers, because the life of the country is, the National Assembly is in the center. So there's no justification. Even if the session is going to start tomorrow, an issue has come today, the day before, the National Assembly should meet, and even if the discussion is going to take until 5 p.m.
And it's going to cost us 1.2 million.
Yes, because democracy has cost. To avoid that cost of democracy, the greater cost is more expensive. So democracy has to operate based on the law, and our law is clear in the Constitution that there's a rule of law. So that when you look at this state of emergency, we have only one state of emergency, which is COVID-19. When you look at it, since March 18, when this president declared a state of emergency, there is a rule. And the president cannot just be jumping and choosing, in that constitution as it fits his need. No, he has to follow what they themselves call the rule of law. And so you cannot be here jumping one rule and the other just to suit you. And this is the point we need to make, so that what he has done, all right, as I said, it means he has severely undermined our governance by kicking out the key governance, the primary governance institution in our constitution and in our governance process, which is the National Assembly. And that is very concerning, and that explains, therefore, all of the other issues you guys come now to talk about, livelihoods, security, enforcement of these regulations. All of those are not happening because the executive is not giving due regard to the legislature. It's not submitting itself to the legislature. If they go there, the legislature says they are not going to extend it. It is for the executive to go and defend themselves as much as they can. At the end of the day, government citizens are seeing their legislatures. So if they defend, citizens would also come as the primary accountability body. Yeah, understand. But look, countries,
like they did last
yeah,
time.
countries.
A number of MPs who voted against extension, they are lambasted in social
seriously,
media.
yeah.
So accused of politicizing very important national issues.
Yeah, and let us say this. Countries that apply democratic means to address a pandemic are countries that are succeeding. New Zealand right now declared they have no COVID because they applied the rule of law, good governance practices to deal with it. They are human beings. South Korea made huge progress. Taiwan made good progress. Japan made huge progress. Countries that are, with a leadership that do not want to submit to democratic means, like UK, like, now United States, we are seeing the impact of that. Or China itself. So we cannot play with democracy. So we have to insist that this president, this government, submits itself to our constitution and follow the rule of law that has been set for our governance processes. But they cannot be jumping here and there.
I just also want to say as a closing remark on this matter, from my point, exactly, is that just because we have powers to exercise doesn't mean we should invoke them. The point is not about declaring state of emergency. The point is about how effective it is, the implications it has on the people. For example, at this point in time, we've declared how many states of emergency. This is the third one, if I remember correctly. We should have done an assessment of how effective was the previous two on mitigating this pandemic that we have. Should we continue to have more declaration on this matter, or should we do something differently?
We have only
because one of the reasons why enforcement becomes a problem is because there are fundamental issues with our social settings, and the fact that there are certain things people cannot afford to do. You cannot ask people to stay at home, for example, if their livelihoods is being attained from the markets, for example. And if even the marks issue, how many of us have access to these marks? Are they being made available to the people? These are all of the questions that we need to ask. So it's very convenient to just sit at some place and declare state of emergency, just for the sake of it.
Yeah, and if you bear with me, just 1 minute. You remember the last parliamentary session in June, in May, when they were called for the extraordinary session to decide on the extension and also the revised and supplementary budget to be presented to the parliament, which was in the agenda of the National Assembly. That never got to be discussed. But that is because the COVID committee had, scolded the Minister of Finance and their team on the use of that 500 million, where the minister was, going into the bush talking about, environment, which doesn't apply here, to the point that he was forced to now agree that he needs to put before the parliament a bill for supplementary budget, a revised budget. That never took place. Now, we've gone 1 month past that. That 500 million, what is the status? That 700 million, what is the status? Those monies from World Bank, IMF, and so on, what is the status? Those materials from Jagma Foundation and other donations, what is happening? Until right now, you go to public institutions, the COVID committee reproduced a report. Police security talking about not receiving, PPEs for their, personnel in the front line, and so many things. So, and that is dangerous because it means now we have an executive unilaterally utilizing our resources. We are not receiving any impact, all right? Just this bag of rice we are giving people are closing their restaurants and, shops and other things and offices. So people are not receiving anything. Money is being spent, materials have come, there's no public testing going on in this country. The state of testing, treatment centers or, COVID centers, you hear all sorts of stories. And the oversight that should check all of those is the National Assembly. Now you decide to ignore that National Assembly.
Okay.
What's happening is scandalous.
Finally now, Solicitor General, how do you expect these last few days of this extended or further declaration of emergency going to pan? Do you expect that most of the measures, most of the things that have been put in place have been observed or have been implemented this time around?
That's like I told you, my view has always been that we are all responsible at all different levels for the implementation of these regulations. So social distancing measures, and all the precautionary measures. And I'm hoping, starting with myself,
Yes.
I would start respecting the regulations more than I am currently doing. I would start to respect the guidelines more than I am doing, and I'm hoping that everyone else would do the same. I mean, I can't give any guarantees, I mean, beyond that. Really.
Yeah, okay, let's move on straight to the next topic, which is, of course, the Constitution. At the end of May, we read that the bill, or rather the draft has been gazetted, which means repealing the 1997 and introducing this 2020. We discussed the time. We try to discuss the timeline now. There will be a second reading, and you want to put it before Parliament in August. Is that okay? Is that timeline still?
No, I mean the Constitution was gazetted, I think, around the 27th of May. Yes, and according to the 1997 Constitution, for any constitutional amendment, I mean, it needs to be gazetted for 3 months, and after the 3 months, it's also gazetted for another, I think, 10 or 14 days. I can't remember exactly. There's a second gazette after that. So what that means is that the expiry of the second gazette would take us into the first week of September or so. So it should be ripe for introduction into the National Assembly around the 10th of September.
Many people really are suspicious that the government is not making its business to expedite these things because it's for political reasons. You are the technicians at the Justice Ministry. Do you think this Constitution will definitely come into force before the end of 2021?
No, I mean, that is not in the hands of the Justice Ministry, unfortunately. We have done the needful. I mean, when I hear people say that we have delayed the gazetting, I mean, I laugh because I know that really the Justice Ministry, this is our project, one of the foremost, I mean, and proudest projects that we have embarked on since we came into office. And so it's laughable to hear that, you know, we would do anything to derail that. What people need to understand.
Might not be you, but if your superiors are
allow
already
me
beginning to make noise.
Allow me to laugh.
Okay.
I mean, when the Constitution was presented by, you know, the what do you call it, the CRC, the final draft Constitution, you don't just take that draft Constitution and lay it before the National Assembly members. It has to be accompanied with a bill, and that bill needs to be crafted carefully, Jan, because it is the first time since independence, I think. I mean, of course, the 1970 Constitution, I mean, was also accompanied by a bill, but different circumstances, as you would know. I mean, you need to be very careful the way you craft that bill that accompanies the Constitution. Otherwise, if you get it wrong, people will never forgive you. So during that period, we were cracking our heads, trying to really draft a bill that would accompany the Constitution, the draft Constitution before the National Assembly. And that was what was responsible for that bit of time that we took. And of course, once we finished with the bill, I mean, we actually gazetted it, and as we are speaking, the bill has been gazetted, and in fact, National Assembly members all have their copies right now. So really, I don't think there is cause for alarm, as far as I know, as far as we are concerned at the Ministry of Justice, that we would do whatever is necessary. The bill will be presented before the National Assembly members. The next steps after that are out of the hands of the Ministry of Justice. What would happen is the National Assembly has to pass, the bill by 2/3 majority. And then after that, it would have to go to a referendum. It needs a 50% voter turnout. It needs a 75% majority out of that turnout for the Constitution to pass. And of course, that is beyond our control. So we have done what we are supposed to do at this very moment by making sure that the bill gets to the National Assembly.
Help us here, because we had different interpretations from different people. Somebody told us that the president or the parliament, there's no provision in the constitution that they can able to alter or amend anything there.
No, I think that's wrong.
Okay.
I mean, it's like saying a sovereign people cannot decide based on the exercise of their sovereignty to change the governing law of the land.
Can I reframe
that
this
goes that goes to the root of our sovereignty as a people.
So basically, the president, or maybe not the president, but parliament can make changes.
Oh yes, oh yes.
Parliament can.
Parliament, of course.
I hold a
Can
different
I reframe this question? I think the person
yes.
who expressed this view, we had similar contention with him. How can you have a National Assembly that's responsible for lawmaking not having the powers to make any changes or any alterations with the Constitution? But I think his contention was that the act that establishes this whole CRC didn't make any provisions for changes or amendments to be made by the National Assembly.
No, I mean, the amendment of the Constitution is not, I mean, a matter to be...
But this is a draft. It's not the Constitution.
Yeah, I mean, the amendment of the Constitution, the current Constitution or its repeal, is not a matter that the CRC Act would really provide for. You have to go back to the Constitution.
Okay, so maybe I used the wrong word, alterations to the draft. So what the person says is that this act did not make any provision that the National Assembly can make any alterations or any additions to the draft as it is presented to them.
The draft?
Yeah.
Sorry, say that again.
The act does not make provisions that the National Assembly can make any changes or can make any additions to the draft as it is presented to them, as they deliberate on it.
And
therefore they cannot do anything with the draft.
No, I mean, that's wrong interpretation. In fact, I remember when the CRC Act bill was being passed at the National Assembly, there was a provision in the initial draft bill which says that the National Assembly will pass the bill for the enactment of the new constitution without amendment. And actually that was amended on the floor of the House. They said they did not want that in the CRC Act. So that actually was deleted from the CRC Act on the floor of the House. So basically, that opens the way to...
I see. So that makes a lot of sense.
So, Cham, on that, on that issue, as he said, but in the amended that bill, the current act does not also say the National Assembly can alter the draft constitution. It only says when it is before them, they can ask CRC, all right, on question. They can ask them about the draft constitution, period, not to alter it. And my position is the National Assembly has no legal authority to touch this draft. You see, people got to understand our legal and governance processes. The current 1997 Constitution gives power, legislative power, is with the National Assembly. So they can act on this constitution. They can change parts of this current constitution that are not entrenched. The 1997 Constitution. They can change, they can make laws as acts of parliament. That is in this constitution, that power that they have in the 1997 Constitution. But the 1997 Constitution has not given them any power to act on a draft constitution like we have now got from the CRC. Because that constitution, draft constitution, is the opinion, like a constitution is the opinion of all Gambians. Is this government, in their wisdom, set up a CRC to review and draft a new constitution. They went around to Gambians at home and abroad, and even went further to meet the National Assembly as a body of its own, to meet the executive as a body of its own, political parties, to seek their opinion. When they now have drafted that constitution, what is required is that executive to pass it to that parliament to facilitate it to the IC, we hold a referendum.
Oh, you see?
So that, because there is no legal basis. There is nothing in the 1997 Constitution. It's also just here. Let him point to any specific provision in the 1997 Constitution that gives power to this parliament to take even a comma out of this final draft. It doesn't exist. All right. So this constitution draft just needs to go to a referendum. When we approve it, hopefully, when we approve it, it becomes in force. Then that parliament, which would be there, would now assume that legislative power to act on it. But until then, nobody.
What you are saying basically is that what the document the CRC produced is the voice of the people as a whole, and neither the president nor the assembly can alter it.
No individual, no institution, nobody.
Cherno, you have to enlighten us that.
There are two schools of thought.
Yeah.
You cannot make. I would not want to make pronouncements of one or the other, because ultimately, if push comes to shove, the Supreme Court would have to probably decide. But Madi's point is a school of thought, which has a lot of moral force behind it, which says that basically this is not ordinary lawmaking. This is actually the exercise of sovereignty by the people, and therefore, I mean, if these people have spoken, the representatives of the people should listen.
Yes.
That's what the school of thought.
What he's saying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But there's another school of thought which says that what we are doing right now in terms of enacting a new constitution is being done under the auspices of the current constitution, under section 226 of the 1997 constitution. And therefore, no matter whatever philosophical underpinnings this process may have, it's still under the 1997 constitution, under section 226. And therefore, if the National Assembly members who are representing the people, directly representing the people, should be able to really act on their powers under 226 and basically do things that, the people may want.
Let me respond.
But again, you see,
let me respond to that. So 226.
Yes.
If you go to 226, it is telling you that power of the parliament to change the existing constitution, and which ones they can change, which ones they cannot change, which have to go to referendum, and also in terms of the repeal of this current constitution. That power, this parliament has that. All right? A draft constitution, this draft constitution, is not coming to the parliament as a bill to be made into an act. This is a constitution, it's not an act. All right? And it is not coming from any specific government ministry, so to speak, like they are. No, it is not an act. This is a whole concept coming to replace this current one. So consequently, the National Assembly is a great facilitator of that process. You see, there's a political process and a legal process here.
But until this new one comes to force, they will have to work under the existing one.
Which is fine.
And the existing one really is telling you there is a provision which enables them to do things.
There's no provision, Cham. If there is, quote it.
Such as, doctoring this, how to call it?
No, Cham, quote it.
But there is
a
constitutional act, wasn't it? There was an act established.
The CRC Act. Yes. But
the CRC would not be the act that would govern this process.
Exactly. So the process, what we are facing through now, is to create a new constitution. A new constitution creates, that's why they call a new republic. So effectively, we are seeking to end this republic. When we finally repeal this constitution, the new constitution that is going to come would establish the third republic. And a constitution creates the institutions of that republic. And one of those institutions is already a National Assembly. Now imagine, let us imagine, this is way before, say, independence. We never had a parliament. We went through a constitution-making process. I mean, nobody would have changed the final draft when we did so. It just have to be sent to the people. Now, right now, if we say the National Assembly can change it, we need to ask the fundamental question, on what basis? What should they change? How? That would effectively mean we are rewriting a whole new constitution by the National Assembly, because this is our opinion. If they remove anything there, on whose basis? Did the National Assembly go to seek the opinion of each and every constituent to say, okay, this provision, remove it, bring this one in there and stuff like that? So it defeats the whole purpose of the constitution-making process.
All right.
If you understand the political process. So I don't see legally, constitutionally, and I have challenged lawyers in the constitution, in the laws of the Gambia. Tell me, in your understanding of political process, governance, why and how could a parliament change this draft?
So we have these two schools of thought, and we're going to leave this matter at that. Now, finally, of course, we've got news that one of the alleged members of former President Jammeh's junglers has been arrested and been put on trial in America.
Is that the final one?
Huh?
Is that the final one? We're going to talk about
it. Okay, let's talk about it.
The appeal courts.
And your ministry really greeted this news satisfactorily, of course, and thanking the Americans. But the irony is, people said, where America, a foreign state, can do that, your government or your ministry is not keen on pursuing, that is, according to your press release, this is a good move, and you are opening up, avenues for those on the run to come back and made use of the TRRC process. Many people think the TRRC process actually let the junglers go free in our streets. But that's a contradiction. How do you explain that?
Well, I think this is a well-trodden path already. I mean, the arguments for and against the release of the junglers, temporary release, so to speak, the bail, released on bail. I don't think we can agree on that. People have different ideas on that. Ultimately, if they were still under detention, the argument is, how would you justify it as well? Given that you've set out a process that is yet to, make a final determination. People who have cooperated with that process, why would you want to keep them, indefinitely, or until the end of that process? Okay. Can't you give them the benefit of the doubt? I think one of the major fears that people had was that they would escape, which I think has proved to be unfounded. So far, they're all here, and I think that shows that I think a lot of them voluntarily really wanted to get this out of their chest and face the consequences later, if there is any. But ultimately, the TRRC would have to, make recommendations with regards to, the junglers, and again, you don't want to also preempt, the TRRC's mandate and findings by taking action, preempting whatever they would want to recommend ultimately.
But then people also said that your government is not keen on vigorously pursuing people like Jammeh was the chief, suspect in all these things, to see whether you could have him prosecuted. They said your government is not even talking about that. The Ghanaian president was once quoted as saying that when he told President Barrow about the needs, particularly to pursue prosecution for Jammeh, especially about the Ghanaians, Barrow's attitude was, we have to, wait for a while until it stabilizes here. So many people thought that to be really a lukewarm approach to the whole issue by your government. Although, to be frank, the Ministry of Justice in the Gambia actually seemed to be very, very much serious with things about the former president.
I think in our local languages, there is this, anecdote that they found, a word crying, and they asked him what he was crying, and he said,
"The way I was."
Somebody spoke me. About me before the time. Or somebody spoke about it after the time. Okay. So we need to speak at the right time. Things have to be done at the right time.
Oh, so it's not the right time to talk about that.
It's not the right time to actually see action, probably. Yes, at the right time, things will happen. But again, as a ministry, as a legal strategist, you don't put all your cards on the table. When you are pursuing transitional justice matters, you have to keep some close to your chest and deal with it confidentially. Okay. So you don't really talk about everything that you are doing, otherwise you risk undermining your own.
Transitional justice still, many people considered a defeat on the part of your government or your ministry when the appeal court declared that last week, was it, that in fact the recommendations of the Jobateh Commission alone cannot be executed by the executive. It has to be put to some other form of litigation, so to speak. And you acknowledge that and stop the sales of things recommended by Jobateh Commission. Isn't that really a blow in your ministry's mission to actually implement or to see that the Jobateh Commission's recommendations are implemented?
Well, let me just start by saying, as a ministry, we issued a press release acknowledging the judgment, and we, as a ministry, and personally have a great deal of respect for the three justices that delivered that ruling. That is Justice Njai, Bayer, and Mahoney. But again, let me just say that if there's a blow, it's not to the Ministry of Justice or to the government. It's probably only a body blow to the whole nation, because I think we are all in this together. The transitional justice and the recovery efforts. I don't think there's any Gambian out there who, genuinely feels that that's something that should not be possible. But let's make things clear. The first thing to note is that this was not an application made by the government which was rejected by the court. What happened was, in the case of M.A. Karafi and the state, the counsel for M.A. Karafi, Senior Counsel Gay, applied for a stay of execution of the commission's finding before the Court of Appeal, as prescribed by the Constitution. And the Court of Appeal actually dismissed the application from Counsel Gay, from M.A. Karafi, and held in a departure from long established, the position of the law in the Gambia, that in fact, commissions of inquiry findings are not enforceable. Therefore, there is nothing to stay. But they are not enforceable by themselves, and therefore there is nothing to stay. Okay. So in effect, I think,
in effect, what I understand is that M.A. Karafi doesn't even necessarily need to put this forward. There's nothing,
exactly, there's nothing to stay.
Which means he should not pay anything.
Well, he should not, on the basis of the findings alone.
Yeah.
All right, but let me say...
It sets a lot of precedents.
Exactly. Let me say that's a radical departure from the state of the law in the Gambia. Since 2007, the law in the Gambia, in the case of the state, and Abdullah Conte has laid down that commissions of inquiry findings are legally enforceable, just like High Court judgments. And if you would recall, the commissions of inquiries that were established, even during the Jame era, like the Tax Commission, and people who appealed against it, had the findings of the commission affirmed by the Supreme Court. And people were made to pay money.
Yes, that's true.
So in fact,
so this is a new development.
It's a new development which we feel, with due respect to the justices,
it's an error. It was made in error.
Exactly. It was made by incurium, was not made in correct application or appreciation of the law as it is. Because I wouldn't want to go into the legal arguments, but you only talk about an appeal against a decision if the decision is binding. But those are legal arguments to be made. But let me just say that the news or whatever, the allegation in some quarters that the Ministry of Justice did not do its homework and that's why this happened is wrong. Because that has been the position of the law in the Gambia since 2007. And as you all know, the Supreme Court has affirmed that by asking people to pay based on the findings of a commission of inquiry. And therefore to come today and say that that is not the position of the law.
The Clark Court case is the lawyer Dabo, Uzeno Dabo versus the state.
Exactly.
The commission, rather, the court said the commission was right. Dabo should pay. So now these people departed from that and suggested that the commission's recommendation is not enough.
It's not enough. For that step needs to be taken. But of course, that is the nature of our job.
But at any point, whenever a court rule, you have to obey it.
That's why we have put a stop. That will not affect those sales that have taken place.
That will never be undone.
No, so that will not undo it because, of course, it doesn't have retrospective effect. And of course, we are taking the matter up to the Supreme Court for a definitive ruling. And more importantly, we are getting two different signals from the same Court of Appeal.
Yes, because that's the one against the ruling against the recent one.
In the TK Motors case. The stay was granted. Meaning that the finding of the commission was recognized.
Yes, and it's the same court.
Exactly. So the law is still not settled as it is because it's two panels of the same court are given different.
Some political, of course, naturally, some quarters in the political divide took this to be the Bible or the Quran. So you are wrong in everything.
No. I think that's probably misunderstanding or cross propaganda for people.
Madi, you categorically condemned the appeal court's decision. If I remember, was it you or somebody?
No, not quite. I have issues both with, of course, the decision, and I have issues with the Ministry of Justice in regard to the Janet Commission report. In the first place, the white paper, I feel it is very selective.
We covered that now. What are you talking about? What do you think now? Then this decision by the appeal court to say,
well, okay, fine, I can jump to that.
I just miss an opportunity.
I don't miss an opportunity. So, because this Janet Commission is very important. It is not just about these individuals or companies and the monies they need to bring back, but it also goes to the heart of our governance and development as a nation. All right, it goes to the heart of our laws, our institutions, and so for me, the Janet Commission is an opportunity for system change. All right, so I'm really shocked why the Minister of Justice or the Executive President did not submit this report to the National Assembly, for serious consideration to trigger necessary legal, institutional, and constitutional changes, to protect the state going forward. But now, if you come to this decision, my issue is, and I think I'm in line with Cherno here, maybe somehow, that I find that decision very worrying, because yes, we know the court is where decisions are made, but in the governance process, in the functions of the state, there are many decision-making points, many processes that are done to ensure accountability and transparency. And so a commission is definitely not a court, but it's another decision-making instrument, mechanism that we have that should establish by law, by the Constitution, and so they have effect. So you cannot therefore brush aside completely the role, the function, the value of a commission of inquiry. Because there are other processes that may not be commissions. Panels take place by the ombudsman. So are you saying if the ombudsman decides on a case, it cannot be enforced? We are having a competition commission. We have PURA. We have many accountability institutions, processes that are not courts. But all of these are necessary to ensure transparency and accountability and so on. And so if you brush aside a constitution like this, a commission like this, set up by the Constitution, to deal with a matter like this, then for me that is really concerning. And I'm happy they want to take this matter to the Supreme Court for that a decision to do. But having said all of that, as I said, I'm also not very satisfied with the way the Justice Ministry and the government as a whole handled the Janet Commission report, going to this point.
Nyima, finally you have something on that.
Yeah, I think I'm learning so much from this, because we have had this discussion, and my point also have been that if the Janet Commission made recommendations, I believe, I had a feeling that the government should have followed up with further litigations, like for example, prosecuting these people based on the evidence that came out. And if the court made a ruling, for example, that they should pay back the money that they have accrued through corruption and so on and so forth, that would have been binding. That was my feeling. Exactly, they went to court to challenge. My point was the government should have taken further steps. That was my point. But now the clarification made here made that very clear to me. But the other question I have, which many people are asking, is the sale of the Jame assets. That has been going on apparently, but there wasn't much there wasn't much information that was available to the public based on these sales. For example, we've not been hearing biddings on these sales. We've just heard that assets have been sold.
So
we don't know for how much. Yeah, basically, that's the point. It has not been transparent. How was that one going?
No, I would disagree strongly that it is not transparent. I think anybody who reads the papers would see advertisements made by the receiver for sale of properties, and as a result, people bid for
Did you say properties or Jame's properties?
No, properties. You don't need to identify who owns the property. You outline.
But this is a very specific matter, so it should have been very clear that way.
No, but it's properties forfeited.
I don't say properties forfeited, not necessarily Nyimmas or 11 times. But what other people said is perhaps that, the time given, some of these biddings or advertisements are made just a few days later and the sales are done.
No, I'm not sure. I think even the receiver, Alpha Capital, also has a website, where these things are advertised. And in fact, we've had people who've bid for it from abroad. And of course, at the end of this process, these things have to be accounted for. Okay. In fact, there is
already, it's been reported about, since the year began, 300-something million that has been.
No, in fact, there is a parliamentary question on it. That has come up, and the minister is going to give a very fitting response in terms of giving the procedure how the sales took place and what has been raised so far. And that is, I don't want to preempt that.
And what's going to
what about the allegation?
And what's going to be done with that money?
I can imagine. I can tell you it's far more than that. But
far more than
parliamentary question will answer with.
And what's going to do with? What are they going to do with that money?
Sorry.
What are they going to do with that money?
Well, we are not money keepers, unfortunately.
You committed some part of it. You said to the TRRC.
Yes, 50 million was committed to the TRRC for
which they said was too small.
No, that was an initial payment. That was an initial.
So you're going to give them more.
Well, yes, but in terms of what happens eventually to the money, that's not our province.
That's for the state.
We recover the money and hand it over to the central bank.
So you want to say the whole process is above board. The APRC who are politicizing the things and defending Jammeh said you were not transparent in selling his property.
No,
Some people close to the minister or the president have got luxurious cars that would have cost a fortune for just $100 or etc.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure.
All
about
that's not true.
I cannot say anything because I'm not aware of anybody who has actually bought the property. I haven't.
You haven't.
I don't think anybody in our ministry has. Well, if they have information about people who have bought properties, they may come out.
But as long,
but I know that the process is a very transparent one, and of course it's through a bidding process where the highest bidder basically for everything that is sold is actually,
Madi, some people in defense of the Ministry of Justice have said, look, this did not change the fact that what Jammeh got were stolen because he didn't have the money, the resources to get 200 compounds and 280 compounds and a vast, and the way, of course, as the Johnny comes and indicated, the monies were withdrawn from the central bank and everything, etc. People, critics of Jammeh, said, this change the fact that he stole our money. So, however they are sold, they still belong to the government people. What do you say to that? The APRC will say that's nonsense, of course.
Yeah, all of these so-called properties of Jammeh are individual.
So-called property? Why you going to? He said he owned them, fair and square.
No, he doesn't own them.
So it doesn't matter
if I become president today and in 3 years, in 5 years, 15 years, I start to have herds of cattle and land all over the place. My salary certainly cannot give me all of that. We know this.
But 22 years. Like this argument, they said President Barrow could afford a mansion in Mankamangkunda in just 2 years. You saw the picture of that.
Yeah, I saw and I questioned it.
They said if you can afford such a mansion in 2 years, 3 years, why Jammeh who worked for 22 years cannot?
Yeah, but it is not like that 22 years, the whole salary is given to you on the first day, so you have this mountain of money. All right.
And even if that is the case,
so we need to check, really, how all of these things were obtained, and we know how they were obtained. They were not obtained like he went to buy them fair and square. Yes, through his influence and, by hook and crook, got communities take their land, jumped on some individuals and forced them to sell their land to him. Monies we now see in the Janet Commission, how, somebody goes to Central Bank, and bags of money will take millions of dollars government money. So clearly, it is very obvious where our money, where it went, how he was using it. So those properties, nothing belongs to Jammeh, as far as I'm concerned. And I think some properties were returned to their rightful owners.
Recommended to be returned to them.
All right, fine. But there are others that may not necessarily have a specific owner, because you take money and you go and buy some other thing somewhere.
Yes.
So
they're all counted against the monies that he's alleged to have swindled.
All right, yeah. So I think eventually the materials have to be sold. Now, I've had a lot of that debate. The way and manner the commission sold the materials. There are a lot of questions, and I would still question that. Let more information come out from the ministry.
As it will happen.
I have no reason to doubt the integrity of the Solicitor General, and what he said now makes me feel pretty reassured, really. But then, citizens need to be convinced, as the lawyers themselves say, it is not to be done but seen to be done. In this case, the sales, it's not just to say we sold them transparently, but have we seen it done transparently?
Yeah, people want to know.
So
how were the vehicles? But they say the vehicles that were costing millions have been sold.
So I had APRC in a press conference. Someone said that Fabakari Tombonjata said he even has information that some smart screens were in some people's house. I think that is sensational talk.
He might be right.
But if that person bought it will definitely go to his house. Because you don't take a smart screen to the beach. You take it to your house. Okay. So this is the point. But for me, let the ministry give all information.
Yeah,
I mean, this is public information at the end of the day. We need to know each item that was put there, sold, how was the bidding done, who were the bidders, and the highest bidder, how much amount was it? Because bidding is a complex, bidding is a complex thing. When you do public auctioning.
And I want to stand by my position that when they are bidding this material, it has to be specifically clear that these are properties that used to belong to President Jammeh that they are selling.
What is your fare? I mean, what kind of properties do you think are being sold?
No, I don't even know what kind of properties are available there. I just want people, this is a matter of transparency. We need to be involved in all of these processes. How do we get the information? How do we know that this...
Division, if they are executing an order, they said Mr. Madi Jobateh's property, or property belonging to Madi Jobateh. And so people like to say, okay, this is number 3, whatever street in Banjul belonging to former President Jammeh.
Exactly.
And it's been put on sale. Actually, there was actually an advertisement, but
that's how it's
properties that have been sold are basically private properties.
Exactly.
And probably those that were forfeited from the Baba
Job and other things.
So the advertisements are good. I mean, the more information we provide, as she's saying, adds value, I mean, to the transparency of it, to the accountability of it. But after this is sold, the sale of these materials also, I don't know, I've not seen any report afterwards to give account of how the auctioning or the, was done. Because people, when they have issues like this, if you understand public auctioning, some of those concerns may be genuine. Because if they're auctioning this, water bottle, I mean, it happens at the bidding.
Auction was just a bid, because I think that's different.
No, it was a bidding process.
It was a bidding process.
Not an open auction.
Not an open auction.
So not an open, right. So was there a committee set up to open the bids where bidders are present? But as I said, a lot of background issues can go in that bidding. So that eventually something will come up.
Suspected there was,
so it is in the interest of the Justice Minister.
No transparency, favoritism.
And the government.
Materials were devalued and sold for chicken changes between friends.
So for the good governance of this country, one would have imagined, Minister of Justice, if you are selling a smart screen, what would be the market value of this smart screen given its age, unused, depreciation, so that we've set this smart screen for $10. In the bidding, you may get the highest bidder with 7. So that at least we know this is what we expected here, but this is what we got. Or we got $15, so we made a $5 above what we expected. So the more transparency you give, and I think one can give this advice to the Gambia government. It is important for any government to always seek to enjoy, to attract the trust and confidence of your citizens.
Finally,
it strengthens your government.
Finally, you are going back to Parliament, National Assembly, to put in some bills when they come next week. One that really attracted people's attention is the bill that will really enable Senegal and Gambia to extradite people who are wanted by the law in the respective countries. A lot of people have said that is a bad law. That is selling our sovereignty, etc., etc.
In fact, it's not a bill. I mean, it's not law.
Oh, it's not a law.
It's
an agreement.
It's an agreement. It's a ratification of a treaty, an extradition treaty.
So you want Parliament to ratify that?
Yes, I mean.
Do you expect them to do that?
No, I mean.
Madi is more Parliament friendly. Madi, do you expect that?
Extradition treaties
let's
normal between civilized
know
countries.
What it entails. Exactly.
I mean, I think every serious country, really enters into extradition treaties. I mean, because otherwise you become a safe haven for, the lawlessness and for fugitives. I mean, so every serious country who is serious with, making sure that your country is not used as a safe haven enters into.
But did this exist between us before?
Yes, we had a judicial cooperation treaty between Gambia and Senegal. It was a 1960. It's an old treaty. So this is an attempt to really, modernize that, because of course extradition law has come a long way since then. And so this is basically a treaty that is based on best practices as we speak. And it's I don't think it's an issue.
I think it's fine, but for us, we look at things from a rights perspective. If it was years ago, Jammeh, and if the Senegal government wasn't democratic, we would have raised concern that, as you see now between Hong Kong and China, is basically the same.
Yeah.
But now, given that Senegal is a democratic country,
where
like the Gambia now,
followed,
so you wouldn't just go and grab dissidents, in Senegal or opponents of the government, critics of the government in Dakar and try to bring them back here. So I'm cool with it. I mean, if anything from the ministry that I posed to him, I did not see the access to information bill in the list of bills that were supposed to go. And secondly, I saw the criminal offences bill. I remember they put a very obnoxious provision there, this insult provision.
Put on hold.
They said, no, they withdrew it.
They withdrew it.
So and I hope...
Is it coming back?
No. I've not seen the bill going to the parliament, but I just hope they did not put those undemocratic provisions there. So that is my concern. But the other thing, in terms for the Ministry of Justice, in terms of further improving transparency and good governance, let the ministry operate a website where bills like this, the Joint Commission report, the draft constitution that they are gazetting, they put it
long overdue.
Yeah, because we are a modern country now. So our state institutions have to be modern.
No, but when was the last time you checked out our website?
No, he cannot say.
Well, I guess
this morning. We do have a website. We try to communicate.
This morning, but it is not there.
As much
Maybe
as
you two need a communications officer as other ministries don't.
No, I think when it comes to communication, I don't want to really.
You make it more effective, relevant.
We've done a lot.
Especially you people speak in riddles, in jargons. So you need somebody to break it down.
I think the Ministry of Justice, without exaggeration, has been very communicative. in the past 3 years. And but of course, there's always room for improvement.
So that's what we ask.
I don't mind telling you that many people consider your ministry to be the one dedicated to the transitional agenda than any other, part of the government.
I'm one of those people.
He's one of them. A lot of people tell me that.
But in terms of the bills, I know that. Actually, we submitted all these bills in December. They were supposed to come in March. In the March session. But of course, with the advent of COVID, they were all stalled. But the access to information bill was submitted to National Assembly.
I know.
So I'm surprised to hear it's not on the agenda.
It is not in the agenda.
Yes, we'll need to find out.
And I raised this with GPU yesterday.
I have a question regarding
it has been submitted
the extradition agreement. I understand that there is also another agreement called the hot pursuit. Is that something accurate?
Yes. Well, that's a defense agreement, security agreement between Gambia and Senegal that was signed.
But
I think
that has been very controversial lately. Is this extradition going to override that, or is it going to exist?
The right of hot pursuit was just a single clause in that security agreement, which says that when you pursue a criminal and he crosses the border, you have a right to, go after him until you capture him. Although, sometimes the way it is implemented.
The Senegalese particularly abused that. They came to the Gambia and shot a
Hot pursuit means that you're basically running after someone and then he crosses the border and you don't want to stop, so basically you go and get him. But not to organize a raid, so to speak.
But there are protocols to that.
But that's a very bad idea, isn't it?
It's up to a certain distance.
URR, they shot somebody, which could even bring problems.
They entered 2 times.
That was not it, but that's the problem.
They entered 2 times. And there are protocols to that, so that when you cross the border, there's a distance.
5 kilometers.
To which you can go, but beyond that, you need to have the escort of the internal defense.
Opening fire in another country.
So I think it is all the more reason. It is not just important for justice to send these bills to Parliament, but public to enhance our lawmaking. Public also needs to get these things, well before today.
So that they too can check
our lawmaking has to be improved.
I would agree, but I think the National Assembly also has a responsibility to make sure that all the bills that are supposed to be tabled are also on the website.
But definitely the public.
So I'm not sure whether it's there. But
no, it's not. It's not.
Not in there.
So let's say the government, general.
The whole parliament.
The whole government.
Just to announce, because I also wear the cap of WFD, Westminster Foundation for Democracy, supporting the Parliament. So we actually have supported the Parliament to build a whole new website, which we wanted to launch COVID, disrupted some of it. But yeah, so that's one of the objectives, to make the National Assembly website a repository of legal documents and notices and all of that kind of stuff. So we hope that will enhance our lawmaking process.
So yeah, I mean, sometimes it's good to also help to improve the situation.
So
that's, I applaud that.
Yeah,
I think that would be really
well,
good. Yes.
so that has been the brunch today. I don't know how much legally enlightened you are over there, but that has been the brunch over the last 2 hours from here on Kerr Fatou. I'm Lamin John on behalf of Nima Kamara, Cherno Marenah, Solicitor General, and Madi Jobateh. We wish you have a great weekend. Goodbye.
yara ñilla domoro ka diatel
boy janno sikes restaurant
e sa nakko be ni na dimbal nimba domoro kala janno
domoro seneyata adiyata topotoro fanan kende ma bije luntan during tamala abeka domoro ki janni adi manda wala de te ka we bijele anim fanan ka fadi jang ikono e fa e ka fa minne ko pastry anim bakery iko fanan be kalele badde lomba conference lomba workshop lomba ye fo pendin lon dunia kono domoro betama nyillom international o toda number 1
amanke ba domola jandama
e sa domo jang is atariya
wo mu kubandi
sa nakko sa futandin
e oto sa nakko be mu CKS restaurant
dafa na janna mu yat ni manje dorom bijam
aban
CKS restaurant, known for best quality food and customer satisfaction.
Miss V Designer Outlet is the #1 quality and affordable stop shop for all your needs. Get your evening dresses, suit and ties, office wears for both ladies and gentlemen, beach wears, sport wears, pure leather shoes for men, quality belts, bags, heels for all beautiful ladies, original perfumes, accessories, and a lot more. Find us at Kololini Road opposite Gaddafi Mosque at the Aqua Bridge Station, or call us on 295-3411 or 764-2486. Miss B Designer Outlet. Shop right, look good.
Love like fire. Wow. Love like fire. Xam ngeen rek affaire bi xam ngeen fan la? Skincare la. 2020 lañ wax de. Waaw. Fii nag mooy Kerr fan Kerr zero tache. Perfect skin. Skincare saa su ne rek niñ ko dee defee rek loo lañ soxlaati rek maanaam bu ngeen am problème ci seen skin ngeen xam ngeen fan la fii ngeen di ñëw suma xarit yeeg am di jàmm yi nga xam ne taas daf lañ sonaloon xam nga doon xeesal ba laka xum éneew ma lañ ko nag waaye just in case comme ni ko gars yi defee rek en cas just in case loolu xew xam ngeen fi ngeen di ñëw fii ngeen di ñëw Skincare Plus si baax rek la ñoo dox nag ay baax rek fu ne la ñoo dem ci réew mi di lañ indi rek nag products yu baax du Paris du Italie du USA du fi mu nekk nii sax boole nañ ci nag Sweden fu nekk lañ leen a indilee products bu dee tamit nag da nga ñuul rek ñu lay jamaa natural beauty that melanin dripping we do have stuff for you as well emuñ si skincare products rek ñu ngi ci cuub yi tamit fu ne la ñoo jaar in fact sax last commercial bi ñu defoon waxuñ leen woon ne dañoo dox ci ay kawar 9A grade rek nag waaw we do have bundles as well hair si lu ne la ñoo dox ñun ñu ngi ci rafetal jigéen rek luy taaral jigéen rek waaw boo leen di tukki tamit bëggoon rek classic suitcase ñu dañoo dox ci ay Samsonite duñ dee indi any brand of suitcases though other than Samsonite comme li ma dee wax rek boo eggee airport dëri Samsonite dafa am nuñ laa xoolee waaw ngeen ne lan nag waaw skin ci moom la ñu gën a xamee nag skincare products ci moom la ñu gën a xamee ñu ngi dox tamit bentey tamit si ay dàll man waaye man nag skincare mooy suma specialty xam nga rek jigéen bu sa xar kanam réglé loo def mu jag am nañ Patricia Reiner Kiwi Eye the whole range Lighten Up Gold Tomatine I mean the list can just go on and on and on and on lépp loo xam ne rek luy taaral jigéen la ci yooyu rek la ñoo dox Skincare Plus nag emuñ si Gambia rek ñu nga United States ñu ngi Gambia fii ba pare bu dee yaa ngi anywhere in Europe mun nañ la ko mail within 3 days rek ñetti fan rek nga jot say diw emuñ si loolu rek dañ laa consult tamit balaa ñu laa jaay diw dinañ def a free consultation pour wax la rek exactly li nga xam ne moo méngoo ak sa kanam dinañ leen wax tamit ne rek am nañ perfumes you know fragrances men's shirts accessories we do dresses as well we do blouses I mean we do shoes name it we do them Skincare Plus 2020 is our year of perfection zero task fi mu nekk nii réew mi fii kenn waratu fi taas kenn waratu fi am problème kanam kenn waratu fi am problème yu picca boo ko amee dafa fekk ne rek ñëwuloo ci place bi fii